get a snack, you fool!
Ow! You don't have to get so upset about a dinky key.
You don't understand anything. It was Dr. Poon who stole it from us. A super intelligent raccoon. His IQ is 1,400. Can you even guess how important that key is?
Well, what is the key for?
It's for the secret treasure.
Then what is the secret treasure, Grandma?
Don't ask so many questions.
Greetings collectors and welcome to today's retro game review. Today I'd like to share with you a hidden gem from the 16-bit era of gaming. Today we rediscover the joys of playing Keio Flying Squadron for the Sega CD. With the release year of 1993 in Japan and then the following year in Europe and North America, Keio Flying Squadron is somewhat of a forgotten classic. The early 90s was somewhat of an awkward time if you were looking to buy a new console. This is particularly true if you're a collector of Sega consoles. The Mega Drive, or Genesis as it was known in North America, was the bread and butter of the Sega gamer at the dawn of the 1990s, but it was only a matter of time though before CD-based technology placed a spanner in the works. For Sega collectors, there was a dilemma. The Sega CD was released in Japan in 1991, North America in 1992, and then finally hit Europe in 1993. Add into the mix that Sega's ill-fated 32X was on the horizon for 1994 for Japan and North America, and 1995 in Europe. Then on top of this, compound the situation by the forthcoming release of the next generation Sega Saturn in Japan in 1994 and North America and Europe the following year. So, picture yourself, it's 1993 and you own the Sega Mega Drive or Genesis. Do you make the leap to Sega CD? Well, in truth, few gamers did. Despite the system delivering CD quality audio and full motion graphics, the timing and capabilities of both the Sega CD and the Sega 32X created a lost generation of Sega games. It was a true no man's land of technology. Trapped between the tried and tested 16-bit systems and the next true 32-bit generation of Sega Saturn and PlayStation, many gamers were happy to keep the status quo and save their pocket money for the next true upgrade, rather than spending it on the 32X or the Sega CD. As such, some Sega games released between 1993 and 1995 fell into a lost generation for collectors. This lost generation of games has become particularly interesting to collect for, as the production runs were typically very short, many games never left the shores of Japan, and those that did had to be adapted to fit the regional CD hardware differences. Heap on top of this that the technology was cutting edge, so developers wanted to invest in making the best in class games they could, to make use of the new format, and make sure it was a success. As history has taught us though, this was the perfect storm to create hidden gems for future game collectors to discover. This leads us full circle back to Keio Flying Squadron for the Sega CD. I'll lead by telling you that this is a game considered rare in all regions. If you have one of these in your collection, it is well worth holding on to. The game opens up with a glorious animation introducing us to the backstory. It's the 8th year of the Keio period in Japan, and Japan itself is nearing the end of its feudal times. New technology shared by America and Japan is changing warfare and the world. An old couple and their granddaughter Rami are the last descendants of the gods. As such, it's their task to protect the treasure of the ancient gods. All is not well though, as a flying wooden ship controlled by Dr. Pom appears to steal the key for the treasure that will help him build his raccoon empire.
The ship appeared suddenly from the sky and attacked.
For no reason at all other than, well, Japan, Rami changes into her bunny costume.
I wasn't there to stop them. I hate this! Hyper cutie bunny chase!
We are then treated to an explanation as to why the absent-minded Rami hadn't been protecting the key.
I got hungry, so I went to the mini-mart to get something to eat. At first I thought I wanted a burger, but then...
You were supposed to be guarding the key. You saved us in front of our ancestors. Shame! Shame! Shame on you!
There's something really enjoyable about the opening sequence. Already this feels like an adventure that we need to be a part of. Rami is sent to fight the evil raccoon empire and return the key. As you can tell from the gameplay here, the game is very much a typical side-scroller in the style of a Q-'em-up. Rami can use her pet dragon Spot in a variety of ways. The player can choose the speed of the flight, but also the formation of the dragons as they follow. Adding to this special power-ups such as spread shot, bombs and projectiles, Keio Flying Squadron sets its stall out as a real contender for a decent shooter. The levels are filled with cute raccoons amongst other woodland creatures. The levels are surprisingly bright and varied. Add into this the amazing soundtrack, and all of a sudden you've got yourself a game that feels very cheerful and bouncy, whilst at the same time retaining a level of credibility. It will put many gamers very much in mind of the earlier Parodius games. Keio Flying Squadron does feel different though. Unusually for a shoot 'em up, there is an actual story to follow, rather than a generic set of bad guys to shoot down. Whilst the game is and always will pander to the fans of the Q-'em-up genre, there is something special about this game. It's got a very real heart and soul about the execution. Sadly, as I mentioned at the top of the episode, Keio Flying Squadron had the misfortune of being released onto a failing format. So, let's take a look at the UK PAL edition of the game. All regional editions of the game are reasonably similar, other than the language variations and that the US edition was sold in the long box format. The game comes in a standard Sega double CD case. The manual is short and sweet and manages to capture some continuity with the feel of the game overall. The front cover is a real classic in my eyes. It's got that friendly Japanese animation style to it and conveys depth, fun and a solid outing for the series. So, how much is Keio Flying Squadron going to set you back? Here in the UK, expect to pay anywhere from £60 for a used copy, but a near mint collector's copy can run you anywhere up to £160 on the auction sites. At today's exchange rates, that's pushing the $200 mark. For a Japanese regional edition, look to pay around the $120 mark, but expect a range of prices based on condition. Now, if there are any American collectors watching, please steady yourselves. If you want to put the long box US NTSC edition of the game in your collection, I've recently seen this game hit the $1,400 mark on the auction sites. So yeah, good luck with that. The issue here is that we have a really decent game that managed to fall through the cracks of collecting for many. By chance I bought my copy for around £13 here in the UK. That's easily under the $20 mark at today's exchange rates. When I bought Keio Flying Squadron some years ago, I had no idea that the price would escalate. Back in the 90s, Sega CD games were not really deemed collectible. I purchased this one as a curiosity, as I've always had a soft spot for Japanese shooters, and I'm also one of the few that actually owned a Sega CD back in the day. If it's any consolation to US collectors, Keio Flying Squadron did see a re-release on the Japanese Sega Saturn. Expect to pay around the £70 mark or under the $90 mark for this reworked version of the game. As you can probably tell, I'm an avid fan of the game and would of course recommend it, as it's not only a collectible but also a game that I actively play. The price tag though, well, that's another story. Would I spend $1,400 on it? Absolutely not. The price has escalated in the US market to the point where only the very serious collectors will even consider touching this one. For the $120 mark to get the UK edition, well, perhaps. It is an old favourite, and I could just about justify collecting now if I cut down on my Sega Saturn collecting for a few months, and paying the mortgage, and eating and stuff. What's interesting about Keio Flying Squadron are the little extras that make it fascinating. On the main menu screen, if you enter a short combination of button presses, you can access a hidden game, the Super Catch minigame. It's very reminiscent of those cheap LCD handheld games back in the 90s. I've always been bad at this type of minigame, but it's an interesting extra feature to investigate if you have a copy of the game. Why else do I enjoy Keio Flying Squadron? Well, not only do you get a variety of ways to set up the game, you're also presented where the hitbox is on Rami. For those of you that watch the channel regularly, you'll know how frustrated I get by not knowing where the player hitbox is. What's more, you can actually adjust where you want the hitbox to be as an extra option. This is just fantastic, as it shows that the game developers really had a good understanding of what shoot-'em-up gamers wanted. Keio Flying Squadron, you score big bonus points here from me. As for the main action, there's a very solid engine under the hood of this game. It's the simple things. It's the moment when you encounter a new sub-boss, the moment the action descends vertically, and of course the moments when you take on the level bosses themselves. Keio Flying Squadron is fun, creative, challenging, and a real hidden gem in my opinion. The low production run may mean that this game has been buried deep in gaming history, but those that own a copy will continue to cherish it.
Dr. Pone wants to use the Ark to turn this planet into a raccoon world.
Hey, why not? Sounds like fun.
What a fool you are! It was totally your fault, you know that. You really should... I guess you'll never learn. Well, listen, Rami, until you get that key back, you will get no food.
Wait!
That's right. No key, no dinner. You'd better hurry and chase them down.
I hate this. Hey, Spot, we gotta go. Spot? Are you still sleeping? Wake up!
Hello again, I hope you enjoyed today's show and thank you for the view. Remember, you can always comment, like, subscribe and find us on the social media sites below. Happy collecting!